There's a common saying in the film industry that what an actor really wants to do is direct. After all, it allows them to tell the stories they are interested in and have full control over a production. While some actors end up directing only 1 or 2 movies and that's it, some manage to make full careers as filmmakers. There are even those who give up acting and become a director entirely. And I'm going to count down my favorite examples of actors who became directors. Now, you do have cases of actors who were always directors. For example, Orson Welles was an established theater director before he got the chance to direct his first feature film, Citizen Kane. You also have someone like Woody Allen, who was a television writer, playwright, and stand-up comedian before he became a director. So I did not include him on the list either. Anyway, here are my top 10 actors turned directors, starting with Greta Gerwig. As her directing credits have grown over the past few years, I think Gerwig has proven herself to be a director with an inspired vision for the world she has put on screen, whether telling her own original story or putting a spin on something classic. While Lady Bird is often cited as her directing debut, she actually co-directed an independent film with Joe Swanberg years earlier titled Nights and Weekends. With Lady Bird, though, her own voice was given prominence, and she was able to craft a funny, almost semi-autobiographical story of a teenager in Catholic school. Then, with Little Women, she adapted Louisa May Alcott's famous novel in an unexpected way by rearranging the order and providing a different perspective for not only Jo March's journey, but those of her sisters as well. I was particularly a fan of what she did with Barbie, taking the classic doll and coming up with a hilarious and unique story that also served as a social commentary on gender roles. Her early directorial efforts showed promise, but it's Barbie that makes me excited for what she does next. Gerwig's ambitions continue to grow higher as she is currently working on an adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Magician's Nephew. I consider that to be easily the second best book in the series, and with Gerwig behind the camera, it's certainly one of my most anticipated of next year. I think she's become a director who will be giving us plenty of worthwhile films in the future. Ben Affleck. While primarily known for his action roles and appearances in Kevin Smith movies, I feel like Ben Affleck has also shown talent for directing in ways I don't think people quite expected. With Gone Baby Gone, he already proved his skill behind the camera as he tackled a difficult story about a young girl being abducted. He made the film compelling and thrilling, and even made the audience think about the right choice in this situation. The Town was another great film of his, developing the right amount of tension in its crime story and bringing the needed depth to the characters we're following. I think his best directorial effort so far has been Argo, which depicts the Iran hostage crisis and the attempts to save a group of Americans. It was a tense, exciting movie that successfully mixed an intense drama with a behind-the-scenes Hollywood story, and it was even my favorite film released that year. Recently, Affleck directed Air, which somehow managed to make a compelling narrative out of the creation of a shoe. He already has his next film in the works, a political thriller titled Animals, and I'm certainly curious to see how that one turns out. Ben Affleck has impressed me on multiple occasions with the films he has directed, displaying a clear eye for how to handle stories about serious subject matter. Ron Howard. To people of later generations, they probably know Ron Howard a lot more as a director than as an actor, but there was a time when television viewers would tune into ABC every week to catch him on Happy Days, or a decade before that, watch him on The Andy Griffith Show. He also played one of the central roles in George Lucas's American Graffiti. However, Ron Howard's directorial output has eclipsed his acting career, and he's given us several worthwhile films while wearing that hat. My favorite of his movies is Rush, an exciting Formula One drama about the rivalry between drivers Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Other great movies he has directed include Apollo 13, depicting the famous space mission that did not quite go as planned, Frost Nixon, about an infamous television interview with a former American president, and Parenthood, a touching comedy drama about the effect that raising a child can have on a parent. He is one of those journeyman directors who can slip to any genre and find the right angle to depict that story. He has done fantasy with How the Grinch Stole Christmas, romantic comedy with Splash, and true life stories like Cinderella Man and A Beautiful Mind. He even managed to suddenly jump into the production of Solo: A Star Wars Story and steer it to the finish line. He has directed several movies since Roger Corman first gave him his shot with Grand Theft Auto, and I've liked a good deal of them. Frank Oz. When people hear his name, they usually think of his work with the Muppets, where he helped puppeteer iconic characters like Miss Piggy and Fozzie Bear. And of course, he's been Yoda in multiple Star Wars trilogies and had memorable appearances in films like The Blues Brothers and An American Werewolf in London. When he became a director, Oz displayed a real knack for handling both fantastical premises and comedies where events take a turn. I think his best movie is Little Shop of Horrors, a delightful musical that made great use of its wild assortment of characters and brought so much life to a hungry talking plant. He also directed one of the Muppet movies with the Muppets Take Manhattan, which also successfully mixed puppet mayhem with a fun assortment of musical numbers. His comedies show an ability of pairing up funny actors with solid material, like the crazy Hollywood story of Bowfinger, a teacher who discovers a little bit more about himself in and Out, to con men up to no good in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, and a psychotherapist dealing with an erotic patient in What About Bob. He's able to handle the wacky events that happen in his comedies with ease, like in Death at a Funeral. Frank Oz is an excellent puppeteer, but he's also someone with a keen directorial eye and clever imagination. Terry Jones. A member of Monty Python, Terry Jones started his career as a performer on various British comedy programs and had an ability of playing all sorts of characters. He would particularly showcase his talent on Monty Python's Flying Circus. He jumped into the director's chair for Monty Python The Holy Grail, co-directing that movie with Terry Gilliam. Jones described that movie as a learning experience for him, but even with the nature of the production, he and Gilliam still delivered a hilarious movie, and the hurdles involved in trying to make Holy Grail with as little money as possible and making do with the locations added to the humor. He would then become the sole director for the next Monty Python movie, Life of Brian, which is my favorite of the movies they made. Even though it was a comedy of all kinds of ridiculous things, Jones still filmed it like a genuine biblical epic, which made the movie that much better. Monty Python's The Meaning of Life is also filled with delights and great comic bits. I admit to getting enjoyment out of Jones' adaptation of The Wind in the Willows, which is a brand of silliness that works for me. All the Monty Python members contributed something to their sketches and movies, and with Terry Jones, it was his ability to keep control of their wild ideas and create something special on the screen. Rob Reiner. He has become one of those people like Ron Howard, where he's now more recognized as a director than for a stint as an actor. His most well-known role was on the sitcom All in the Family, but he then made an impressive transition into directing and made a fantastic number of movies that are now widely recognized as classics. He already got the ball rolling with This Is Spinal Tap, a funny mockumentary but a fake band and everything they have to deal with on the road. Reiner would then showcase an ability at telling all kinds of stories in various genres. Misery and Stand By Me among the best Stephen King adaptations, When Harry Met Sally deserves its status as one of the best romantic comedies, and of course there's The Princess Bride, which is a delightful mix of fantasy and comedy. A Few Good Men is also a gripping courtroom drama, and The American President is a very enjoyable romantic comedy about, well, the American president. I know a lot of people find the quality of the films he directed after that to be a bit spotty, but his 80s and early 90s output is an incredible run and more than good enough to earn Rob Reiner a spot on this list. Buster Keaton. One of the great silent comedy actors, Keaton was also a skilled director with particular interest in seeing how far he could push what was capable on screen. Plus, with so many of his movies centered on carefully timed stunts where any little mistake could have been fatal, it was necessary for Keaton to have some control over them. He had an incredible ability at putting together so many inventive set pieces, with the general probably being among the most notable. The things that he does with the train throughout the movie are remarkable, and in many ways could be considered a precursor to the likes of Jackie Chan and Tom Cruise and the wild stunts they would be known for. The comedy in his movies were on point too, and he would throw in a sweet romance in there for good measure. Seven Chances is full of hilarious moments, as are The Cameraman and Sherlock Jr. All the silent films Buster Keaton directed are now in the public domain and easily accessible, so if you're interested in seeing his incredible craft, not just in front of the camera, but calling the shots as well, I highly recommend giving those films a look. Vittorio De Sica. Now this choice might surprise a lot of people, as he's primarily known as a director of Italian neorealist cinema. However, before he became a director, De Sica was an actor who starred in several Italian movies, beginning in the silent era and continuing into talkies. When he eventually stepped behind the camera, he proved himself a filmmaker with a keen eye for depicting the lives of people. His most famous and renowned film is Bicycle Thieves, and deservingly so, as it's a brilliant film about the search for bicycle. De Sica does a fantastic job of depicting this post-war Italy and seeing how this stolen bicycle affects the relationship between a man and his son. Umberto D, about an elderly man and his dog, similarly delivers a heartbreaking story of someone just trying to get through life. De Sica would later have a number of successful collaborations with Sophia Loren, directing her in films like Marriage Italian Style, Sunflower, and Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. I've not seen her Oscar-winning role in De Sica's Two Women, but it's definitely on my watch list. While he did not stop acting after becoming a director, the latter career has certainly eclipsed his original one. Warren Beatty. He made his name playing characters who often use their charm to get what they want, but I think what I find most impressive is his directorial work. He already started off with a bang on Heaven Can Wait, which he co-directed with Buck Henry. Adapting the play about a man who dies by mistake and then ends up in the body of a millionaire, this was a hilarious film that showed his ability at directing comedic situations and did a fantastic job of updating the story to the late 70s. His next film, Reds, was an ambitious epic that managed to chronicle the life of communist writer John Reed, showcasing his romance and his relationships with friends. It's a magnificent piece of filmmaking on Beatty's part that's fascinating even if you don't share Reed's political views. Dick Tracy is one of the most inventive comic book adaptations, truly looking like the colorful panels come to life on the screen and mixing it with the style of a 1930s crime movie. His political satire, Bulworth, about a senator goes rogue on the campaign trail, does not flinch in its depiction of the media and how they react to Bulworth's actions. I was also impressed with Rules Don't Apply, which combined romantic comedy with a wild portrayal of Howard Hughes, and that almost felt like Batty commenting on his own Hollywood career. Through the 5 films he directed, Warren Beatty showed himself to be a filmmaker with a unique voice and a genuine fascination with his subjects. Before I mention my number 1 pick, I do want to shout out a few names. Harold Ramis, who began his career in sketch comedy, was someone I considered for this list, as movies like Caddyshack, Groundhog Day, and National Lampoon's Vacation showed his skill at directing comedy. Gene Kelly is also worthy of a mention, especially with the important place that Sing in the Rain occupies in musical film history. He directed that film alongside Stanley Donen, as well as another charming MGM musical, On the Town. I also really liked his take on Hello Dolly, but I should really see more of the movies he directed. Laurence Olivier showed he could direct Shakespeare for the screen, and while I've only seen Hamlet and Henry V, both impressed me. Kenneth Branagh has also done well of adapting Shakespeare, especially his Hamlet. I have a huge fondness for his version of Cinderella as well, and find Thor to be one of the more underrated entries in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Jordan Peele has impressed me with the 3 movies he has directed so far, and I will always be interested in what he does next. Taika Waititi only had a few acting appearances before trying his hand at directing, so his career trajectory is not quite the same as other actors turned directors I've mentioned, but he's nonetheless still worth acknowledging, and I'm particularly fond of his films What We Do in the Shadows, Hunt for the Wilderpeople, and Jojo Rabbit. There are also actors who directed one movie and then never tried again for whatever reason, but still did good work, like Charles Laughton with The Night of the Hunter and Drew Barrymore with Whip It. And now my number 1 favorite actor turned director is Charlie Chaplin. If you've been watching my videos long enough, this should not come as too much of a shock. After all, Charlie Chaplin is my favorite film director, so it would have been difficult for anyone else to top this list. Chaplin, of course, started his career as a vaudeville performer before eventually signing a contract to star in movies for Mack Sennett's Keystone Studios, which is where he quickly devised his immortal character of the Little Tramp. In fact, it only took a few months for Chaplin to convince Sennett to let him direct his own films, and from then on he would largely take control of the entire production, figuring out the gags, and deciding how the Tramp's adventures would play out on screen. He continued to grow as a filmmaker with short films like 1am and The Rink that showed his ability at finding the comedic situations in any setting. Chaplin would eventually bring deeper pathos and stronger political commentary to his films that would further enrich them. When he started directing features, he made so many classics. There were heartwarming films like The Kid and City Lights, the bold special effects and imagination of the gold rush, and his take on the effect of the Great Depression and the treatment of workers in modern times. When he jumped to talkies, he did so with a bang with The Great Dictator, a fantastic takedown on Hitler and his totalitarian regime. He made a wicked dark comedy with Monsieur Voodoo and reflected on his own life in Limelight. I could go on and on about the many brilliant films Charlie Chaplin directed. He had such a keen understanding of filmmaking and how to use the camera to tell the stories that most interested him, all while making the audience laugh and think. Now let me know who your favorite actors turned directors are in the comments, and I'll see you next time.